Coming up on this week's edition of AU Hoop Talk with Coach Brennan, presented by Launchbox Golf. We'll talk to Coach about Saeed Nelson's big performance against UMBC. Assistant Coach Scott Greenman stops by to discuss recruiting, among other things, and we'll look forward to the games against George Mason and Mount St. Mary's. It all starts right now. And welcome into AU Hoop Talk with Coach Brennan, presented by Launchbox Golf. And Coach, let's jump right in. It's the season of giving, but let's talk about stealing, and that is Saeed Nelson, his game the other night against UMBC. 8 steals, which is the most in D1 in a single game so far this season. Pretty impressive contest.
Yeah, no, he's done that his whole career. I mean, he's incredible with just reading the plays, anticipation. I mean, a little bit is. It's not necessarily our scouting report. It's him paying attention to everything that we're going over and knowing what everybody's doing on the court. And then sometimes it'll be like he'll make a play where he thinks he should have passed it to somebody, and they might get a steal, and he'll go down and be so upset at himself that he'll just literally run down and steal the ball back. So it's incredible to watch. But yeah, he's a terrific player, and like I always harp on how many things he does for us.
Sure.
Within a game. And it showed up in the box score last night on the defensive end.
Yeah, and we talk so much about, his scoring is obviously the first place that we go. But in the steals department, how have you seen his game evolve in the 4 years he's been on campus here?
Yeah, just knowing when to go for them and when not to, being more sort of discerning. So not, he rarely gets hurt going after a steal and not getting it. So he knows when to sort of pick and choose his moments, I'd say. And it's funny, we were always trying to give him a break. I never want to take him out of the game.
Right.
So the assistants are like, okay, now's the time to get him some rest. So I think just getting him breaks allows him to just play, with more energy when he's in there. But it always seems like when they say, it's a good time to rest, and boom, he gets a steal and goes in and scores 2 points. I'm like, it's hard to take him out when he's doing things like that all the time.
Yeah, second in the country in steals per game, which is pretty impressive.
And second to the kid was it
Richmond,
Gilliard out of Richmond, who Coach Jackson, our staff, recruited him hard until Richmond came into the picture. But he's similar players, real just cerebral point guards.
The game against UMBC, I would assume you're really happy about the way you guys moved the ball. You had, I think it was 21 assists on 29 field goals. Was that something that stuck out at you when, after the game, you glanced at the stat sheet?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the way teams play, they're trying to figure out, do we play the shooting, do they make you drive, do they make you throw it inside? So you got to be prepared for everything. I thought our guys, we've always focused on sharing the ball, but I was happy to see so many different guys throw passes. And, it's not just one guy. It's not Saeed with the ball, getting a ball screen, and him throwing the assist over and over and over. It's everybody participating and everybody sharing the ball. So I was happy to see everybody, be thinking along those lines. And you need everyone to be able to make a shot too, which is, everyone's essentially doing that at this point.
Well, indeed, and you mentioned that, and the game against UMBC, we'll go back to again. You had 11 healthy players out there. You played all 11, and everyone contributed. So that's another thing that speaks to the depth of the roster and how everyone can make shots. Yeah,
and it's, the way we play, whoever's out there has to be able to do so many things. It's not like you just plug in a shooter for a shooter or a rebounder for a rebounder. Everybody has to be able to shoot, pass, dribble, make decisions, drive, throw cross-court passes, post up, whatever it may be. So they have to do literally everything. So to get young guys in there and new guys in there and have confidence in them that they'll be able to do it is not always easy. But it just speaks to, the level of players that we have, throughout the roster, and Jesse's, is a little banged up, but, want to get him back. In the fold, because then you got 12, 13 healthy bodies that you can throw in there.
Does it make it easier or harder when everybody can do everything about switching guys in and out?
Much.
So many interchangeable pieces.
Yeah, much. Easier. It used to be where my first year here was 5 guys played the entire game. So there is something, quote, easy about that as far as substitution patterns, but there are definitely times when, you wanted to sub a guy out, whether it's foul trouble or fatigue or, they're in a little bit of a fog or something. So now it's great to have, to look down the bench and feel good about, oh man, I want to get him in there somehow, but there's a battle, because then I'll look back out on the court and say, well, I don't want to take anybody out either because they're playing well. But, the assistants have to remind me, you got to rest guys, they got to, continue to, play at that level that they're playing at with energy. So, just being able to sub guys in allows them to play at full capacity for the full time they're out there.
One of the guys that you've talked about, as his conditioning gets better and better, he'll see more time, is Yoljip YY. And the other night in the UMBC game, was able to slam, had a dunk, was doing the game with David Aldridge, and he said, wow, I didn't even know YY could do that. Did you? Had you seen him do that?
No, I knew he can do it. Okay. I mean, YY's finally healthy, completely healthy. So he's been, battled injuries and all this kind of stuff, and and that sets you back. So then once you get back and you are healthy, you're still a little behind. So he's been healthy for a while. So he's, been practicing, in the scout, knowing what we're doing offensively and defensively. And he just plays so hard. So it used to be, he was banged up last year too. When we needed a stop or a rebound, we'd throw him in there because that's all, he had in the tank at that point. Yeah. But now it's like he's healthy and, he's able to play for longer stretches. So it's just, it's great to see him, having pushed through all the difficulties to be able to, be out there playing and contributing the way he has.
Fun to see Christian Sutton get some time. He's played in 3 of the games so far this year, but it was fun in the UMBC game. Got his first point of the season, and the crowd really got excited and reacted to that, and so did the bench.
Yeah, no, I mean, the thing I like about this group is they all like each other, and I like them. They may not always realize that all the time, but it's a really good group. It's a coachable group. They root for each other. They're working their tails off. There's no ego. There's nobody that's upset about minutes or shots or any of that stuff. It's just everybody playing together, sharing the ball offensively and defensively, including Christian. We're down. We've been down to 10 and 9 healthy bodies at points, at certain points throughout the year. So he's in practice every day, pushing these guys. So they see how hard he works. So they all root for each other. So especially for him when he gets those moments, they're all certainly rooting for him.
Now you had a 10-day layoff a little while ago, and now after the George Mason game, you're going to have another 10-day layoff leading up to the Mount St. Mary's game. Anything in particular you're going to be working on? I know that the students are going to have to be working on that part of their student-athlete title. But anything in particular that you're going to be working on, or more just rest, get healthy, and let's get ready for this big stretch?
Yeah, I mean, I like the season starting earlier because it allows for these, these bigger breaks once you get going. And you see it throughout throughout college basketball that it's hard to stay healthy. Everyone's so big and strong and fast, and everyone plays so hard that you just staying healthy is a key. So I like the big breaks. And then as far as just what do we work on, the team will show us what we need to work on. But it'll always be just continuing to share the ball, play together, be more in tune. Defensively, you might put in 1 or 2 plays or do something a little differently defensively. But at the end of the day, the team will show us, okay, well, what's the next step to make, or the next step to take? Because again, the way we play, it's we haven't posted a lot of guys yet. So maybe they'll show us, okay, we're scoring, we're driving. Defenses are taking certain things away. So what can we take advantage of? What's the next thing? And that might be something. Just posting more guys off of cuts.
So lots of things to look for moving forward. It's time for our first time out here on AU Hoop Talk with Coach Brennan, presented by Launchbox Golf. When we continue, Scott Greenman joins the discussion. That's next. Welcome back to AU Hoop Talk with Coach Brennan, presented by Launchbox Golf. We're now joined by assistant coach Scott Greenman. Scott, thanks for taking some time.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
And so let's just jump right into the general idea of what you do. You do a little bit of everything, right?
Yeah. So, the way that we break down our staff, I think, is really good. Coach Brennan allows all the assistants to have a hand in everything. So we're all coaching, we're all recruiting, we're all doing administrative stuff. So everybody is getting better at their job in kind of every aspect. So a big part of it is on the court coaching, and same thing out there. Each assistant works with each position, so it's not like specialized where I just have the guards and somebody else has the bigs. We all work with everybody. We all work with them on offense. We all work with them on defense. We all have our own scouts. So it's very much of a spread the wealth kind of thing where everybody's dabbling in everything and improving, personally and helping the team at the same time. So that's good. And then another big part of it is definitely recruiting. So each assistant, same thing there. We're all on the road. We're all recruiting all positions, all years, kind of from all over the country. We don't really specialize a ton, where one person's in charge of one area, the other person's in charge of the other area. We all try to watch each other's players to get the best feel, so that we have a lot of opinions on everyone. So that's a lot of what we do is recruiting and then on-court coaching.
So a lot of it's a collaborative effort, a lot of it. You
Yeah.
may see something and you may go to Matt Wolf or Eddie Jackson and say, hey, this or that, or I saw this and that, and you guys aren't getting like your feelings hurt that someone else is bringing something up.
Exactly. No, there's we don't want yes men. We have a lot of good discussions in the office about strategy on the court, and then recruiting wise. I might go see somebody play and really like him, and then I'll say, hey, EJ, you might need to go watch this guy, see what you think, and he'll have a different opinion, and we all try to see them as much as possible, so at the end we're making as much of an informed decision as we can. So that's pretty much how we do it.
What part of it do you like the most? Because you've had a chance to do so much of it, and over the course of your entire coaching career, what is it that you enjoy the most? Which part of it?
I like all of it. You don't want to.
That's the political answer.
Yeah. Well, recruiting is fun. Just learning about new guys and going to see them, especially when you see somebody that you really like and kind of developing a relationship with them and learning a lot about them as people and kind of seeing them progress from game to game, year to year. Now at the same time, you don't want to be on the road, 300 days a year, and you want to be around the team. Obviously, ideally, it would almost be like two separate parts of the year where you're coaching and you're there every single day for practice, and then when you're recruiting, but that's not the way it is. So every once in a while you got to miss a practice here to go watch somebody play. But the fun part is recruiting the guys you want, getting them here, and then really coaching them once they're here. That's why you get into coaching, is to be a coach and to impact people's lives on the court, see them change off the court and on the court. So that's the most fun is the day-to-day interaction with the guys on the team.
Now during the game, a lot of times we see you, saying things to Mike as he's patrolling up and down the sideline. What are you saying? What types of things is he looking for from you, or are you telling him?
Yeah, a lot of times it's from all the assistants. It's just substitution patterns, trying to see if somebody looks tired, somebody might need a sub, somebody's struggling with something, defensively, where we want to take them out and say, hey, this is what you're doing, but this is what you should be thinking. Just kind of give them a quick breather to kind of refocus them a little bit. And then, most of the strategy stuff, I'd say, is done during the timeouts. There's a lot of media timeouts. It's hard to really say too much during the course of play where it's up and down, but then we have a break every 4 minutes or so. That's when you kind of say, hey, this is what we're seeing on the court. This is what we should run. This is how we need to defend. So for the most part, throughout the game, while it's happening live action, a lot of what we're saying is just substitution patterns.
Let's jump into the recruiting process a little bit. Connor Nelson, one of the guys, one of the new faces this year, brought in from Wyoming Community College. How did you find him, and how did you know that his play skill, his skill set, would translate from that level to D1 and be successful?
Yeah, well, that's the fun or the interesting part about recruiting is there's no exact science. So each guy on the team has a kind of a completely different story about how they got here. Some of them we knew about them when they were freshmen in high school and tracked them all the way, and it happened to work out. Like a guy like Saeed. I'd say Connor is almost like the complete opposite. We had no idea who he was. And it happened to be that his AAU coach and junior college coach kind of reached out to us at the end of last season, or almost in it might have been May or June actually, and just said, hey, we have a guy out here who we think is really good. He's had some Division I schools come in and look at him. Kind of nobody's pulled the trigger on him yet. And so we watched a ton of his film. We talked to a lot of the people around him just to make sure that, because we liked what we saw on the film. But then that's not, that's one part of it. But then you have to kind of make sure that you're bringing in the right kind of person,
a good kid,
and a good kid who's going to be a good teammate and work hard and all that stuff. So we did a lot of making phone calls out to people in Denver, people at the junior college, or he's from Denver, so people in Denver, people in Wyoming, just to get as many opinions as we could. And it all checked out. I mean, every person essentially said the same thing, like, he's a great kid, he's a great student, he's a great person, you're going to love him, plays really hard, practices really hard, he's going to be a good teammate. No issues with parents, none of that stuff. It was like a full go, and so, that coupled with what we saw on film kind of made it an easy decision.
Now you said that, obviously this is a bit different than how you guys brought in Saeed and finding him, and he played for the same coach that you played for in high school. So obviously that speaks to relationships being important. But take us through that process in bringing Saeed here.
Yeah, I mean, I knew about Saeed since he was, younger than high school, just because growing up in the same area, and he was friendly with his cousins and all that stuff. But yeah, so that's more of a situation where I know all the guys at my high school essentially from the time they're freshmen. So followed his career, freshman year, sophomore year, junior year, senior year, and then it worked out where he was interested and had a good kind of relationship with him and his family and the coach, and he thought it was a good situation here, so it all worked out.
How much video do you guys have to watch when you're looking through recruiting and the process in general? I mean, I'm assuming it's a ton of video, and obviously only a small portion of it is going to be guys that you ultimately even go look at.
Right. Yeah. It's like I said, it's not exact science. I mean, generally speaking, you're going to immediately look at most people that you reach out to or that contact you have some type of highlight film or package. So that's kind of the initial thing where you're watching a 4-minute clip and being like, okay, do his skills look good enough? Does he look like the type of player that's going to be good enough to be, close to being a Division I player? And that's the initial, thing that you see. And then from that point, you decide, okay, I'm going to call his coach. He looks pretty good. Let me find out more about him as a person, as a student, as a player. And then from that point, you're going to try to get game film. So you see the highlights. Does that pique your interest or not? If it does, then you try to reach out and say, okay, let's try to see if that's an actual, portrayal of what his game is, or if that's, just highlights and then you watch the game, you're like, oh man, that's not really what's happening in the game. He's not playing defense. Those were by far the best plays he's ever had. But at this point, you normally have at least a pretty good feel for, whether or not you're going to be happy, or whether or not you think what you see on the highlight film is going to translate to the real game or not. But watching the whole game is important because you see more, when things go wrong during a game, is he pouting? How's he reacting? Is he playing any defense? Is he going after rebounds, or is he just standing in the corner just shooting and trying to score every time? So you learn a lot more from watching the film and talking to people. But that's like the progression of what we get and what we see and how we approach it.
Now this season, one of the things that's changed is the three-point line. It's been moved back to the international distance. Have you noticed much of a difference? Obviously, I understand it's a small sample size, but still, fairly early in this season. But just from the cursory glance you've had so far, have you noticed much of a difference?
Yeah, I mean, I was saying subjectively, it seems like it's affecting the numbers a little bit. Like I would guess that people are shooting a slightly lower percentage, but I haven't looked at, this time last year versus this time this year to actually know if I'm completely incorrect or not. I think it affects, I don't think it's going to affect the good three-point shooters. I think the guys that were shooting 40% at the line last year are going to be able to do essentially the same thing from this line. I think it'll affect the guys that are not great shooters, not terrible shooters, but somewhere in between, where if you're around the, I'd say the 28 to 32% mark from the other line, you're going to, I'd say, probably going to drop a little bit because it is significantly further than last year's. It's not like the change they made 10 years ago where it was just 8 inches or whatever that was. So I do think it's going to have an impact, and it definitely affects, I'd say, more so shooting off the dribble. So you can kind of have some different ball screen reads this year where you may go under more than you did in previous seasons because you're not as worried about people pulling up off the dribble from that deep.
So is that something that you guys are looking at and talking about more in practice with this moving back, kind of how to to take advantage of it?
Yeah. As the year goes on, we're kind of, it's all personnel based on who you're playing, but it's definitely a little bit more intriguing to make that part of the scouting report this year.
Now, I know you enjoy the social media. You really enjoy Instagram. At least it seems like you do. Talk about social media and how important it is in this day and age, and frankly, how you've seen that part evolve from really not having to do it at all to having to do it a little bit to now probably needing to be in it on a decent amount.
Yeah. I'd say love is a strong word. I think it's important, I think, for recruiting and to kind of get the message out to as many fans and recruits and guys on our team, because they like it too, as possible, and to have fun with it. I try to not be a joke coach, as I would say, where it's like, oh, this is my motivational, quote for the day and this and that. So I try to have a balance of some of that stuff a little bit, try to market our team as well as we can, and then, throw some humor in there as much as possible. But no, I think it's a good tool for all of that. Reach a lot of people really quickly. And I think that's how a lot of the high school kids especially kind of keep up with everything. It's no longer going to be as efficient to sit down and write 30 handwritten letters and send them out to each person with a picture of our team. Be like, look, this is our team, when you can just scroll and find something much more quickly on Twitter or Instagram or whatever it may be.
What is your Instagram handle?
I think it's Scott_Greenman, and then because I tried to make the Twitter and Instagram the same, but one of them was taken, so I had to have a slight change. I think the Twitter one is Coach_Greenman. Well,
be sure and follow Scott, because he's an interesting follow. Thanks for taking some time. Appreciate it.
Absolutely appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
Scott Greenman right there. We'll be back with more on AU Hoop Talk with Coach Brennan, presented by Launchbox Golf. Welcome back to AU Hoop Talk with Coach Brennan, presented by Launchbox Golf. And Coach, let's jump into the upcoming games. And the first one is the game at George Mason, short trip over to Fairfax. But boy, has Mason gotten off to a quick start this season, 9-1, and their lone loss is to Maryland, which in the latest AP poll is ranked third.
Yeah, and their wins are against really good teams.
Mm-hmm.
They're beating everybody. They're playing really well. So I expect that from Coach and his teams. And then, just us having won there early last year, I know that they'll be, certainly ready for us this year.
Anything in particular? You've known, obviously, Dave Paulson, the head coach over there, for a long time. Was in the Patriot League, head coach at Bucknell for a while before getting the job over there at George Mason. Anything that you've noticed from a coaching perspective that he's changed as far as his style goes or how he coaches from when he was here in the Patriot League with the Bison to now being in the A-10 with George Mason?
Yeah, not really. Coaching's coaching. He's been successful everywhere he's been. He was, terrific at Williams. So going to Bucknell, it's a jump in level or whatever, however you want to describe it. But it's the same. It's basketball. So I fully expected him to do well. When he got to Mason, and it's coming to fruition. The guys are playing well. They're playing hard. They're pressing. He's got good players. They recruit well.
And you see them, fourth, I think it is, in the country in total blocks, third in the country in rebounds. And, I mean, those are a couple numbers that defensively are pretty impressive. How do you guys go in, maybe without giving away the scouting report, how do you guys go in and battle that, knowing that you're going up against that type of team?
Yeah, I mean, there's no secrets to it. You know what you're going up against, and there's no magic defense or magic formula, or scheme that we're going to do to.
You're not going to
combat
unveil
it.
anything. Anybody's
Right?
going to go.
Yeah, it's just playing hard. Just us being the best version of ourselves and our team that we can be, which is everybody. What we've been doing, which is everybody contributing, everybody sharing the ball. Everybody being alert and talking on defense the entire time, and the bench and just everybody on the team being ready to get in and contribute and not have a letdown, when we do sub, which we haven't had, which has been good.
Mount St. Mary's is the next one coming up on December 17th. That's a road game in Emmitsburg. Another fairly close game for you guys to travel to. You look at Mount St. Mary's, and they've gotten off to a tough start this year, but they've also played a pretty tough schedule. Among the teams they've played is Kansas, the Jayhawks, which are currently ranked second in the country. So a tough schedule, but what have you seen from the Mountaineers here early on in this campaign?
Yeah, I mean, they got us here, in a close one last year. But, I mean, they got good players. They got good players. They really share the ball. I mean, Dan does a really good job with them. They play hard. They're unselfish. They're attacking constantly. They put a ton of pressure on you. So, from what I've seen, they're playing well and they're good. They've had a tough schedule and it doesn't always show up in wins and losses. But, they put pressure on everybody they play, offensively and defensively. So, we just, again, there's no, every game is a difficult game regardless of who you play. So you got to be ready, no matter what time or where or when, you just got to be ready to play and ready to go.
Couple tough road games for the Eagles coming up, and then back home on December 21st against Stony Brook. To keep up with the Eagles, be sure and check them out on all of the social media platforms. For Coach, I'm Dan. We'll see you next time.